On this episode, we talked to BCSC Superintendent Dr. Jim Roberts. Are you ready to celebrate?
Whoa.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to another hashtag Celebrate Columbus show. My name is Josh Burnett, and as you can see, we've got a very special guest here today. I'm so excited about this episode, Columbus. We're actually filming this at my alma mater, Columbus East High School, and we're very excited to be here. Thank you very much to the Columbus East TV department for having us here. We're very excited to be recording this special edition of the hashtag Celebrate Columbus show. Columbus, I'm very excited about this episode because over the last year, I've gotten to know this guy right here, and I'm just so impressed with the way that he is leading our community when it comes to education. Education is a very important part of every community, but especially in Columbus. And so for Dr. Roberts, for the three people that don't know who you are in the Bartholomew County area, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and how was your first year as our BCSC superintendent?
Well, I can, Josh, and first of all, thank you for having me on the show and helping us get our show for BCSC kind of kicked off for the 2017-18 school year. My first year at BCSC was an excellent one. Again, blessed to be in this system and to be a part of such a wonderful community, a supportive community, one that respects, appreciates, and helps, assists with us in education. With last year, any particular school year, whether it was last year or I'm sure heading forward to this one, it's a roller coaster ride. We're going to have our ups and downs and we're going to experience some twists and turns. But overall, a lot of successes. Those successes included us being able to start down the path of a new district plan, which allows our schools to get in line with us and make sure they are doing the things that are necessary to ensure that our students are growing as much as possible academically, achieving as well as they can, increasing our graduation rates, being more prepared for college and careers. And then from a district standpoint too, us looking at our staff members and making sure that we are able to recruit and retain the highest quality people, as well as compensate them at a competitive rate that makes sure that they want to work for us. We really are looking from a district standpoint, and during that first year, taking a lot of time of looking internally as well as externally what's going on and trying to ensure that we are the district of choice.
Awesome. Well, thank you for giving us that brief rundown of your first year and what's going to happen this year. I know that we've talked about some very exciting things that BCSC is going to be a part of, and I can't wait to talk about it in this show. It's an honor to be able to collaborate with you, and we're going to be talking about BCSC in Action, which is a program that you started in your first year. You saw that social media is very powerful, and that we can have some type of show to be able to display to everyone around, whether it be online or on television, through social media, that we are the district of choice. So I can't wait to be able to talk about that. Thank you, Columbus, for watching, and let's get into the show. Dr. Roberts, in your opinion, what makes BCSC such a special asset to our community?
It's a really good question, Josh, and I think from BCSC's standpoint, it's important that we are a special asset. We are a publicly funded school corporation. Taxpayer dollars flow into us. It's how we run our business. Our core mission is producing student learning and producing a workforce for this community and others. And so it is important that we're considered special. I hope that is the case. We believe it is. We are the community. The community is us. We are involved in every way that we can with whatever's going on in this community. As the community is thinking about moving forward, progressing itself, getting better in its own way, we are at the table in those conversations. I'm a member of many boards in this community. Just about every day it seems like I'm attending a meeting at the community level to talk about what's happening And it may be something that that the track's improving, which means more trains coming across those tracks in upcoming months. We're at the table having a conversation about that. We have a heck of a lot of school buses, over 100 school buses that run a few hundred routes per day and cover about 4,000 miles per day. And so we're crossing those railroad tracks a lot. So just an example like that we're a big part of the community. We need to be at the table participating, and we believe we are adding important information, feedback, results to the community so that they can make the proper decisions in moving forward. This recently, the community came together in a very special way with the very tragic situation with the death of Sergeant Jonathan Hunter in Afghanistan, and bringing Sergeant Hunter back to the city of Columbus. The way that the community came together again involved us in that conversation, and participated from the procession through town all the way up to the visitation and memorial service on Saturday at Columbus East High School. So we have a very large community event that needs the school corporation to be a part of, and the school corporation came through, in my opinion. The leadership at Columbus East was tremendous, and they made sure that the community had the opportunity to participate and recognize and honor a fallen soldier. So that was a really neat example. We are working with the community to ensure that we understand the workforce needs here, whether they be in advanced manufacturing, information technology, healthcare, whatever it might be, and then ensuring that we are providing pathways to our students to prepare them as well as possible for those jobs that are available. And not only the jobs here in Columbus, but we recognize that we have to be globally competitive. The students, as they come through our system, aren't just competing against their neighbor for a job. They're competing against other students from around the world for positions. And so we want to make sure that we are producing an outcome from a student standpoint where they are able to do that. And again, we learn how to do that by our conversations with the mayor, the county commissioners, people like Jack Hess and John Burnett with the Community Education Coalition, working with IUPUC and Ivy Tech and all others that are involved with the Columbus Learning Center. It's just, again, an extremely important piece. You ask about us being special. Again, I'm asking the folks in Columbus what they consider us to be. I believe that it is, and it all does circle back to the fact that taxpayers are funding us. We are trying to be responsive to that, and hopefully we're meeting their needs.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. Something that I know that you're constantly thinking about and working with people of all sectors in our community to keep making BCSC more and more a great asset to our community. Something that you were speaking about when you talked about Sergeant Jonathan Hunter. I noticed that story was very prevalent on social media.
It was.
And the way that these days people are getting their media has changed so much, and the way that our students are consuming information, it seems a lot more likely that they would have heard that news on social media rather than traditional media like television or newspaper or radio. We're here sitting in the TV department at Columbus East, and we're doing the show on several different ways. In your opinion, what is your view of social media? Because sometimes it can be a very negative thing, it can be a positive thing. What do you think about social media?
Social media certainly can have its negative parts, but I believe that it is important for us to maximize the positives that social media can provide to us. And I have been an educator now for a while, and have seen the growth of and use of technology within schools, including social media, and as an administrator, been a little bit afraid of how that is when it comes into the school system, and how we as educators and how our students might use that medium in ways that we don't necessarily appreciate or don't further our mission of developing our students from a college and career readiness standpoint. But we've tried to push those negatives aside, minimize them, again, while maximizing the potential that exists. And so a year ago, a part of that first year of my being here, we had not been active in social media before, so we decided to at least roll out Facebook and Twitter. And so hopefully our Columbus stakeholders, Bartholomew County stakeholders, will like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter and pay attention to the information that's going out. And it's really been those two mediums for us have been a way to tell our story. And when I look back at last year, and I've had the opportunity to meet with maybe the Columbus Area Chamber of Commerce or our Economic Development Board or others and talk about what we've done in Bartholomew Consolidated Schools, it's been easy for me to remember those things by just going back and following our Facebook posts or our Twitter feeds and see the kinds of things that were on there. And we have a lot of people paying attention and sometimes weighing in. And Facebook in particular, just because of the way that operates, does give people an opportunity to comment to us.
Yeah.
And sometimes those comments provide constructive criticism or feedback for us. Sometimes maybe not so much, but we do read all of it and try to internalize what we can and simply get better. And when I think back to last year, there were a few posts that they would not go viral. I wouldn't consider them viral by the definition of viral from a social media standpoint, but for us, they had a heck of a lot of likes or people paying attention to them. An example would be following the election last year. We had some students that maybe didn't behave as appropriately as they should, and that created a little bit of a stir within us as an educational institution and therefore within the community, and other things were happening within the community and outside of it as well. But we used Facebook to get a message out in terms of how we look at diversity and what our tolerance levels should be as students and educators within our system, and that received a lot of views and actually was then picked up by national media to indicate at least how the Bartholomew Consolidated School System was addressing the situation. When it became time to look at the potential of school, whether closings or delays, one of the first things that we are going to do, besides call the media, is get it out on Facebook and Twitter what is happening. Fortunately, last year was a pretty easy year for a first-year superintendent in the system, but we had a very cold day before Christmas last year, and people were wondering if we were going to delay. And so we came out with a statement via social media about what we think about delaying or closing on a cold weather day, and that was, we're going to try to go. If our buses are running and our buildings are open and warm, we believe we can have school, and so we're going to try to do that. So that had a lot of views and people paying attention and weighing in on. And then in the springtime, we had a substitute teacher who is very familiar to our students in Bartholomew Consolidated Schools, Mr. Terry. And Mr. Terry decided to retire as a substitute teacher at the tender age of 83.
Wow.
And so we posted a picture of Mr. Terry walking out on his last day actually here at Columbus East. And we had about 30,000 views in regards to that particular photo of just a tremendous tremendous man who then we had a chance to actually interview on BCSC in action at the end of the year. So we tried to use it in a variety of ways, either to share news items or something that's maybe going on that we want to fix or change, or just tout the positive things that are going on in our school system and make sure more people are aware of that. So I think social media provides just additional opportunities. You mentioned this show will go out in a variety of mediums, as many as we can use. Our students today, for example, aren't necessarily paying much attention to Facebook or Twitter, so what are we going to do about that? Is it Instagram, Snapchat? What are the kinds of things that we can continue to evolve or use as a school system so that we're meeting all of our audience, including our students, because I'm not sure they're paying quite as much attention as Facebook as maybe I or you might be at this point in time.
Yeah, and there's a couple things specifically that you mentioned during that statement that I want to expand on a little bit farther. You said that you started a show last year, which many people saw, and this is sort of the kickoff, so to speak, of season 2 of that effort. We've talked about this off camera, but I'd love for you to share a little bit about your vision to Columbus and Bartholomew County. What are your hopes for this program? Because this is not something that's normal for a superintendent to say, hey, we're going to have a show and we're going to talk to the community on a regular basis. What are your hopes?
Yeah. Well, this show is another opportunity for Bartholomew Consolidated Schools to reach out to the people in Columbus and to share, again, the information, the things that are happening here, and to figure out a way to get feedback. And I stress constructive feedback. We do hope that people will weigh in and provide us with questions and or even responses to the things that we're doing so that we can learn more and we can get better. We don't get better by just working from within. We have to go outside of our school system and figure out what's going on around us. pick up that information and then use that to close whatever gaps we have and get better. Besides those things, and just helping us get better as a school system, I hope that we will feature a lot of students and a lot of educators within our system so our community can get an in-depth look inside of our schools and what is going on inside classrooms, outside on playgrounds or on the athletic fields, or with our marching band when they participate in competitions, or any other group that we have that's going out and doing just wonderful things. We want to make sure that they are featured. So those are some of the things that I hope to accomplish by getting this show out, and again, getting the show out in a number or through a number of different mediums.
And a couple different times you've talked about how you listen and you look at the feedback. And so we actually have a special segment on this episode that's going to be coming up in a second called Ask Dr. Roberts, which is going to be very interesting. Thank you for those of you who submitted your questions. But before we get into that segment, Dr. Roberts, the last question during our time together that I'd like to talk about with you is, how can we as a community support you? That's something that we want to do through this Celebrate Columbus show, and I know it would mean a lot to me and to everyone watching to know, how can we support you in BCSC?
Yeah. Well, there are a number of ways, and I've referenced already being prepared to give us responses or constructive feedback on the things that we are trying to do. So information flowing into us is helpful. We do wade through all of that to try to get better. But there are also such a large number of volunteer opportunities. So if somebody's wondering how they can chip in and participate, things like book buddies or being a classroom volunteer, helping with fundraising, whatever those things might be, every day we have an opportunity to seek out volunteers, so we hope that people will do that. I mentioned fundraising, so when somebody comes around and is maybe asking for something to help a program move forward, please don't turn one of our kids away. And in regards to that, their taxpayer money goes to a certain place, and we want to enrich and expand the opportunities we have. Sometimes we have to reach out and do those kinds of things. And then whenever we have events, whatever is going on in our community, from a school standpoint and otherwise, I hope that people can be in attendance and pitch in and make sure they're demonstrating that support in a physical way for our students here in the system.
You know, you just spoke to something that I'd like to kind of end with, because I've noticed within the last year or two, and I know that it's something that you care about, there seems to be a lot of pride for our community when it comes to Columbus East, Columbus North, New Tech. There's some really cool things going on right now in the life of our school corporation. North went to Washington, D.C. You know, East has been very successful in different things. What gives you hope about the future of our community with these students that you get to serve each and every day?
It's mostly the things you just said, Josh. We're already demonstrating a large amount of success through the various activities we participate in and the success of our students. As you were talking through that, I immediately went to just recently what's been going on with the Columbus East and Columbus North rivalries and that whole rivalry week that we have. And I thought about the weekend with Columbus North and East football and the game, and having, 10,000 people maybe in attendance from the community coming out to view that, following that up the next day with the funeral for Sergeant Hunter, and the community coming out and being on school property again and participating in that, and us featuring students who are live streaming that, so that not only people in attendance physically could see that, but also people outside of the building, out globally, would have a chance to view that particular event. And then culminating that evening with the Columbus North and East soccer games, and having a chance for both boys and girls to come together, and another, I was there, but thousands of people, it seemed like, gathered around that field. And in that particular situation, we go from Columbus East football field to Columbus East Gymnasium to the complex just north of town near the airport that is a Parks and Rec complex that our kids are coming to and participating on. So that community engagement, community involvement, our kids and the activity, the success they're demonstrating, gives me great hope for the future of BCSC, for this community, and I believe it will continue to thrive.
So my name's Dawson. I have a question. What were you like in high school, and did you ever think you were going to be a superintendent?
What was it like in high school? Well, my perception might be different than somebody else's, but I was a good student. I was an athlete, played basketball and baseball. I lament that I did not participate in some of the music or performing arts pieces. I wish now, many years later, because I really enjoy music, that I would have taken the opportunity available to me in high school. So I would recommend to anybody watching this show, students, if you're in school now, we have a heck of a lot of opportunities available to you. Try to take advantage of them, as many as you possibly can, because I feel like I failed to do that. But so my high school experience, again, good student, athlete, happened to meet my wife in high school. Didn't know that she was going to become my wife at that point in time. We had known each other since first grade. I was a basketball player. She was a cheerleader, and got to know each other a little bit, but went on to Indiana University and there began dating and eventually became married. So met my wife in high school, so that was pretty cool. And no, I did not know I was going to become a superintendent. In high school, I believed I was going to become an educator. I enjoyed sports. I thought that, and I had a lot of teachers who I looked up to, respected, appreciated their work, and believed I could be a good teacher and coach, basketball specifically. And so that's what I went to school to do. I went to, again, Indiana University, trained to do that, and when graduating, went straight to Hauser High School here in Bartholomew County, and had the opportunity to teach math and coach baseball and basketball. My experience at Hauser, I had a very good principal. Gene Ginth was the principal at Hauser High School at that time. He mentored me, suggested that maybe administration would be something that I would be okay at, and I followed his recommendation and received my master's degree in school administration, became an assistant principal at Batesville High School, and the rest, I guess, is history. After becoming a school administrator, I looked at other opportunities in school administration. Getting a superintendent's license, a doctorate degree was one part of that, and so I pursued that. And so eventually started out as assistant principal at Batesville, became superintendent at Batesville over a number of years, and then that has led me to obviously being superintendent here. So didn't know that way back then, and sometimes I guess that's the case. As we start our career path, we have a variety of ideas of what we want to accomplish and never quite sure where the path is going to lead us. Ours has led me here, and I'm glad that it did.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, my name is Spencer Walsh, and my question is, what exactly are your plans for the future of special education?
The exactly part I might be challenged on a little bit, Spencer. As we look forward and we try to develop any program, it's a process. So we want to make sure we understand what our needs are, and we put specific pieces in place then to address those. But an area that I can tell you we're working very hard on right now is the transition of our special needs students into the workforce. We don't believe that our community is necessarily employing as many as it could, and we have a role in ensuring that our students are as well prepared as possible in getting out in the community and being great workers in our workforce. And so we have put together a plan that has utilized some funds from the City of Columbus. We recently made a request for something called TIF dollars, and with that request we asked for a certain amount to help us with STEM activities, science, technology, engineering, and math. We asked for some dollars to help with our iGrad program, getting more students to graduate, and that could include special needs students. But also we included or asked for some dollars to help with our transition program of taking our special needs students, preparing them well for the workforce, so doing specific things within our school system, and then helping them get into the workforce and getting them positions. So in terms of exactly what we would do right now with that group, some of the things would be making sure that we have special needs students working for us. What are the opportunities within Bartholomew Consolidated Schools to put some of our kids to work, to monitor that, supervise them, coach them, help them get better so that they can then take a step from here and get into the workforce. So that is a very specific thing that we are doing. We are enlisting even an organization outside of our school corporation to help with that, to observe the kinds of things we're doing today and how we can be better tomorrow. This group has also worked with Cummins locally to help with individuals with disabilities and ensure that their needs are met within the workplace, and that more, again, individuals, special needs students, individuals with disabilities are being able to be employed. So we're very focused on that particular piece and making sure that's the case. The last thing I would mention in terms of special needs, we are a very inclusive school corporation, and we will only continue to be as inclusive as we possibly can be, meaning that our special needs students spend as much of their day as possible in the regular education classroom and not being pulled out and placed somewhere different. A statistic we have is that 89% of our special needs students spend at least 80% of their day in regular education classes. That is an extremely high number compared to other school corporations. So it's a number we're proud of, but we know we can even do better. And whether it's getting them in the class, more kids in a classroom longer, or when they're in the classroom, making sure they are benefiting better from that experience, we maybe have some additional work to do there. But those are some of the things we're working on within the world of special education.
I'm Alicia. I am a teen mom and I go to Hauser. I had a question for Dr. Roberts. Dr. Roberts, I'd like to know, like, our principals are worried about us, but what is your plans for our kids in the future?
It's a great question, Alicia. And first of all, I'm glad that you're down here and as a part of this program as a student at Hauser, and that you're thinking about the future. And that's what we're trying to do too. And as we are putting plans in place right now today, you're in a class, you're getting your education, you're going to graduate, hopefully be ready and prepared for whatever life brings you. We're having to think that way too for your child and others that are coming into our system. And one of the very first things is making sure that we have pre-K available for all kids in Bartholomew County. And so that would be whether those kids live within the Bartholomew Consolidated School System or even Flat Rock Hall Creek School System. Do they have access to high quality pre-K or early childhood education programs? I think those are vital because kids who have a chance to participate in those programs are even more prepared for then what comes next, moving into kindergarten, first grade, and so forth. And then it is taking a look at whether it's within this community and the kinds of jobs that are going to be available. It is hard to forecast that far out. We're talking about your child or others who are a year old or less, and we're thinking about when is that first job they're going to have, maybe 20 years, close to 20 years down the road. So what does the workforce look like in Columbus and beyond in 20 years? So we have a district planning committee, and it's actually called the Corporation's Continuous Improvement Council, that is trying to take a look and forecast those possibilities so that we can begin putting programming in place, whether it's at a pre-K or K level, all the way up through high school. So whatever the jobs that are going to be available here, our kids are as well prepared for them as possible. Right now, for example, we know advanced manufacturing is huge in this community. A lot of jobs that are available in that area. Information technology with the use of computers, other kinds of technology, that's big. Healthcare seems to be a huge need. Education, because we are in need of teachers to help people learn how to do those other things. Those are some areas that we are very much keyed in on, as well as a global perspective and offering global languages all the way down through our system. How much will that change? We have to try to figure that out, forecast that out, and put programs in place. So hopefully we'll be figuring those things out through the use of our corporation's Continuous Improvement Council and ensuring that your daughter, as well as others who are of similar age, are ready to go when they get to our school system.
Hi, my name's Seth, and we saw through our School of Questions that the beginning and the end times of schools, and parents were wondering, how would you change that? Would you stay with it? How would you respond to it mostly?
Yeah. Thanks, Seth, for those questions. I did have a chance to see those as well. And we had two situations that almost were in conflict with each other, because what I noticed is we had a question about starting school a bit later, 8:30, 9 o'clock, for example, which there is some research out there in terms of the amount of sleep that teens need, and starting school later might be more conducive to their learning environment. But the other question was in regards to the other end of the day and getting out earlier, or having secondary school students get out earlier so that elementary school students were getting out later, and therefore that helping the situation more at home. And this is always interesting from a school standpoint. We're going to get a lot of information come in, questions, responses, criticisms, whatever they might be, about how things might be, and sometimes they're in conflict with each other, and we need to parcel that and figure out what the best situation might be. Right now, I think people are pretty familiar with the start and stop times in terms of elementary and secondary, kind of that 7:45 to 8 o'clock start time, and then near the end of the day, we're anywhere from about 2:40 to 3:15, based upon which building you're in, elementary, secondary, and so forth. that seems to work pretty well for the community at large in terms of when people go to work and when people get done with work, as well as when we think about secondary school students and all the extra things they do. We have many students, high school students, who have jobs. And so being able to get off out of school at a decent time, get to a job, and be able to get in an appropriate number of hours to make a little bit of money, it seems to be helpful to end at least at a certain early enough time, as well as the extracurricular activities. We have about 2/3 of our kids at any given point in time participating in extracurricular activities. And so they are taking time after school to practice, to participate, to leave our community and go somewhere else and play in a game or participate in some form of competition. That in itself takes time. So it is a balancing act. We'll pay attention to those kinds of things. We have started some research around the later start times. I don't know that we'll end up at going to that. And again, the fact that by doing that, it impacts some things that people might want to see on the other end. So anytime you look at those kinds of situations, we have to understand the logistics around them and understand the impact our change might have on all students, their parents, and the broader community. We have about 14,000 people that report to these schools on a given day, almost 12,000 kids and almost 2,000 employees. And so when we change, we're changing the entire community. And so we have to respect and appreciate that as we have the conversations about making those kinds of decisions. So not committing to changing on either of those, but it was interesting, and appreciate those questions again, because we had two that seemed to be somewhat in conflict with each other. One starting the school day later for secondary, and one asking that maybe secondary students get out a little bit earlier than they currently are, or at least ahead of elementary students. And so we will look at all of those situations and try to determine what's best for not only our students from a learning standpoint, but how it impacts then our broader Bartholomew County community.